Thank you for joining us today. Hello, and welcome to From Lansing with Love. I'm your host, State Representative Leslie Love. Every month we discuss a different topic with interesting guests. I hope you will find this program both informative and insightful. Today's show is something very near and dear to my heart, the arts. Arts and culture are important to states' economies, and they provide direct economic benefits to state and local communities by creating jobs, attracting investment, generating tax revenue, and bringing in tourists. The arts are also a vehicle for social change and justice. According to the Creative State Michigan report, the creative industries generated $2.5 billion in state tourism revenue. And more than 25 million people made visits to arts and cultural venues and events, which would sell out Comerica Park 618 times. From 2007 to 2012, the number of arts-related jobs increased by 15% to more than 85,000. Many of the jobs, the arts and creative industries are skilled trade jobs, such as construction coordinator, welder, carpenter, electricians. The arts and cultural sector contribute more to the national economy than construction, agriculture, mining, utilities, and travel and tourism sectors. The lead state agency promoting the arts in our state is the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. We have with us today John Bracey, the Executive Director of the Council. Mr. Bracey has led the MCACA since 2006, serving as Director of Programs since 1998. He serves on the boards for the Cultural Data Project, the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, and Arts Midwest. He earned a degree in psychology from the University of Michigan-Flint and spent 9 years as a journalist, working as a reporter and editor. Thank you, John Bracey, for being here, and welcome.
I wouldn't miss this.
Oh, I am so glad that I have you with me, and I have another guest after John Bracey, that this is an exciting show. Oftentimes, we don't get to talk about the arts and culture and the creative industry. We're the first desired and the first fired when it comes to all projects. So talk about the effects of the creative industry on our state's economy. This is huge. Because recently we've had a lot of films coming to the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan in general. And I think people always think of Ben Affleck, but they don't think of all the creative jobs behind the scenes. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure we have enough time. But the organizations in the state of Michigan, and we work really very hard at ensuring a wide geographic distribution. And just really quickly, I'll point out that our fiscal year, this past fiscal year, we have arts and cultural grant money in every congressional district, every state Senate district, and all but 6 of the state House districts. And so those 6 we're working on. So it's broad, and I'm not sure that a lot of times policymakers understand exactly the breadth of those organizations when it comes to jobs in particular. We have our organizations that just come to us, and last year we made 502 grants directly, a little over 1,100 grants to organizations when you look at our decentralized programs that we have, sort of the smaller programs. Just those, and that doesn't count the for-profit groups that are in the industries or the film groups. It's just those organizations that apply to us. 16,000 full-time employees work there. They generally hire about 2,000 new employees every single year, and have been doing that since 2010. They have unrestricted revenues in the neighborhood of $400 million. It's an amazing sector, and I think the problem is is the whole idea of nonprofit, and that's why they don't really get thought about as the businesses that they are. And I always like to say that nonprofit is a tax status. Nonprofit is a mission choice. It's not a business model. These are large, medium, and small businesses, from the Henry Ford, which is a huge business, somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 million in unrestricted revenue every year, to the Upper Peninsula Children's Museum in Marquette, which is maybe 4 people work there, but they do such amazing things for their community. And that's what it's like across the state. It's communities trying to make that 1 square mile of their universe the best place that it can be. And almost always arts and culture is at the center of that.
Yes, it's really interesting. And I should back up too and just get a little overview for people who it may be their first time hearing about the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. So I'm going to go back to that and ask you, for our viewers, what is the Michigan Cultural Arts Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs, and what do you do?
Sure. Well, we're a state arts agency. There are 56 state arts agencies in the nation, so each protectorate also has a state arts agency. So D.C., Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Marianas. I'm always glad when I get those right. We work with the National Endowment for the Arts directly, and every state with their state arts agency is responsible for providing access to arts and culture by working with those arts and cultural organizations for their communities. So we do that through grant making. Our current fiscal year, we have $9.7 million to grant, $9 million from the general fund. The $0.7 comes from the National Endowment for the Arts. It's a competitive process, and the arts and cultural organizations from every corner of the state compete, which the process alone, talk about a bureaucrat. The process alone, I could talk to you forever. I love our process. It's open. It's not myself or my team, which, by the way, is the best team in state government.
Yeah. You say so yourself.
Yeah, I know.
Let me, before you go on, so you fund nonprofit organizations, arts and cultural organizations throughout the state of Michigan.
Yeah, or tax exempt. So we also will work with, the arts organizations, the DSOs, the DIAs, the Art Prize, and those kinds of organizations. But we work with schools, and we don't really distinguish as long as they're doing public programming. We don't distinguish between public and private schools. It just has to be doing public art programming. Municipalities, colleges and universities, they can all apply to us.
Can you, from your perspective, seeing this over a state level and then having conversations nationally with people, the relevance and importance of arts? They cut them from schools. It's the first thing, that goes, we don't need the arts program. We need to make sure kids know science, technology, engineering, and math. So how do you defend an arts and culture program in these economic times?
Wow, Representative, that's such a huge question. The economic data it's not disputable, and it's data that we don't even do ourselves. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation has done that research. So it's basically third party, or Americans for the Arts does that research, and so you really can't deny the economic impact, both direct and indirect. I always like to point out, because you can think about the DIA or the Henry Ford or those organizations and understand, the Henry Ford's 1.5 million people or more visit that every single year. Clearly that's going to have an impact. That's going to have an indirect impact too, because individuals will come to the community, they'll stay at the hotels, they'll buy dinners, and they have that indirect multiplier impact as well. But I always like to point out that to the small communities, because I figured the smaller numbers you can get your head around. So I'm going to talk about Everett. Everett is in the middle of the state, right on 10 as you're going across from east to west. They get a grant from us. Their city applies for a grant for their summer music concerts, the Everett Musicale. They do pretty well by us, and they have those concerts there. And I received with an application a letter of support from a restaurant owner who was very frank with me, and he said that it's not like I go to all of these concerts, maybe one a year, but please support this grant application, because for 3 hours before the concert and 3 hours after the concert, my restaurant's full.
Exactly.
And I think that can really describe to you the impact and import of them as a business in their community. Now, the other parts of your question take it out of the realm of business and into something far more human. And I personally believe that the arts are half of what it is to be a human being. And I think access to arts and culture is a human right. And I think that the UNESCO Charter sort of bears me out on that if you're a wonk like I am and read that stuff. I think it's Article 27 or something that establishes access to arts as a human right.
I like
But
that.
I think when you start looking at data like that's coming out of the President's Committee for Arts and Humanities about the Turnaround Arts Program, or some of the other arts education partnership data that's coming out, and some of our newer arts education projects, it's so clear that not only are students that are involved or engaged in the arts, and it doesn't mean that they have to try to be artists. They're just learning how to express themselves,
Right.
how to understand what it is to think about someone who is different than they are and walk in someone else's shoes. They have that opportunity. They're far more likely to graduate. They're far more likely to graduate, and I think it's in the 90 percentile the last time I looked at that data, far more likely to go to graduate school as well as university followed by graduate school. And this is the cool thing. They're more likely to come back to their home community and volunteer in other places. And isn't that the kind of citizen that you want in your state?
And it helps make a person a more well-rounded person. Like you said, just because you are taking a class or a few classes does not turn you into an artist. That doesn't mean you want to do it. And I think it actually kind of helps balance the brain and maybe even make it juicy, as I say. When I was teaching in public school and then 12 years at the college, but particularly in public school, it's like, it's the class, oh yeah, that arts class, that's the easy A. But then they'll get in my class and find out it's not the easy A class, but they are exposed to the world through the arts.
I so agree with you. And it's that kind of exposure. All of a sudden they're learning discipline. They're learning how to think creatively. And no offense to all the STEM education, I would prefer to see that STEAM education with that A in there. But generally, you find that without that creative spark, you have a highly qualified and educated production workers, and you lose your innovators, you lose your inventors, and what sparks that is the arts and how to learn creative expression.
That's right. So we have a few more minutes. Can you tell us, there are always pressures on the state budget with groups asking for more money. And so how does the funding for the arts look for you?
We're doing pretty well at the state. The legislators like yourself have been very generous over the last few years. During the Great Recession, we had actually fallen precipitously, really. We were down to $1.7 million to grant for the entire state, and the staff was, myself and another person. That was it.
Is the council doing anything about STEM to help people understand that the creative arts are actually they make the STEM sexy?
Agreed. We've been working with the Department of Education on a couple of different projects to establish more directly within the core curriculum access to arts and culture for the students. I think that's where you begin. I would love to see things like the teacher certification to include more arts and culture. We work with the universities that have arts administration programs to ensure that they're impacting their graduates in the way that they can understand this is how you need to react within the community and provide that access. And it all comes back to education. But we know that, just getting there is part of it. So we created a couple of really small programs, one for teachers to apply to called the Bus Trek Grants. We discovered that schools weren't taking field trips because they weren't budgeting for their budgets are that tight. They couldn't budget the extra for the gas money. $500 from the Arts Council now can get you to take a field trip to one of our clients. The equipment, we have another small program. A school can apply for $2,500 to purchase art supplies or equipment That's just all it's about. And we discovered in our research that there was a school that had some French horns in the closet that hadn't been played in 10 years because they couldn't budget to fix the pads on the horns. It's $1,500. You know, such a small amount of money can go a long way in a student's life. And who does that, as you would know, coming from the theater, who does that better than arts and culture?
Well, thank you so very much, John. And, you know, I believe that art is a part of the healing process, too. In this last year, we've had a lot of things happen in America. There's been some, you know, the transition, the changeover on a national stage. And I'm looking forward to the arts community really providing the soundtrack, the art exhibits, the dance concerts, the plays, the poetry, that is going to help move this country to a place of more loving, healing, and understanding and tolerance. And I think that's going to happen, and the arts will be used as a real force for social justice change, as it always has. I mean, the artists have always been involved in politics and advocacy in the community, too. And we forget sometimes about, particularly in the 60s and late 50s, of some of the arts activists that were very engaged in global conversations.
Or through the AIDS crisis.
And through the AIDS crisis.
Don't forget
huge,
the artists
yes.
that make people laugh.
Yes, and our comedians, absolutely. Yes, they all, the entire kaleidoscope of creatives. So it's time for us to take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
Kids today have superheroes that lift buildings and superheroes that fly. But what if we could go to a place where real superheroes lived? Ones who moved mountains, lifted an entire people, and taught the whole world how to fly. Come see America's greatest history attraction, the Henry Ford, and ignite the spark of imagination in all of us as we watch our heroes come alive in pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
Welcome back to From Lansing with Love. I'm here with not just the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, but my friend Jenenne Whitfield of the world famous Heidelberg Project. Welcome, Jenenne.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm happy to be here.
The Heidelberg Project is a perfect example of the arts as a driver of economic development and social justice. In 1998, the Heidelberg Project was determined to be the third most visited cultural tourist site in Detroit, with more than 275,000 visitors coming from all over the world. One of the most recognizable living arts displays in the world had humble beginnings when artist and founder Tyree Guyton began cleaning up vacant lots. With the discharge refuse they found, they began decorating the vacant lots, introducing found object art to Detroit. Thus, in 1986, with his grandfather and mentor, the Heidelberg Project was born. Last year, the Heidelberg Project celebrated its 30th anniversary, and I was proud to sponsor and present to them on the House floor a special resolution marking December 2016 as Heidelberg Project Month in the state of Michigan. So again, thank you, Jenenne, and we're going to talk all about the Heidelberg Project, what you're doing, and the social justice impact here. The Heidelberg Project, I said in your intro, 30 years, and it has had quite the story.
Yes.
And I remember hearing your story of how you turned on Heidelberg Street and discovered it and got involved. So really quickly, let the viewers hear from you how when you turned on that street and you saw that, and now 30 years later, you're deep in it.
So 24 years of those years are my years. So I did turn down the street. You know, I was corporate America all the way. And I think a great testament to how the arts do change lives. And so, yes, I turned down that street, and a year later I gave up all corporate America and went to try and build a kind of a function and an administration under what Tyree Guyton had started. And that was 24 years ago. And so, yeah, we're celebrating 30 years, and I'm excited about what we've done and what we're continuing to do. So, our vision here for Heidelberg is now, we call it a science. It's known as Heidelbergology. And the concept of using art and creativity to change lives and to bring, attention to forgotten neighborhoods, but also to look at how we can level the playing field of, some of these new changes that are happening in Detroit.
Yeah, well, many people are not aware of the social impact of the Heidelberg Project and how your work addresses issue of race, classism, social inequities that's prevalent.
Right.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, just as an example, just by virtue of what the Heidelberg Project is, it's this jaw-dropping experience of this wild and crazy art. It attracted people from all over the world. You mentioned 275,000 people. And that's from 144 countries, Leslie. But even more importantly is the fact that Williams College performed an economic impact on the Heidelberg Project, and we contribute over $3.2 million to the Wayne County region alone.
Wow.
And that was in 2012, and with a fraction of our visitorship. So that's on one hand on a larger scale, but then let's think about the lives it is impacted on an individual basis. Children who've grown up in that area, in that community, one who lived on that street, who, exposure to drugs and crime and petty theft, but just recently graduated from Michigan State University because he said that the Heidelberg Project taught him he had choices. So we can go from alpha to omega in terms of its impact in the community, and then more importantly is providing jobs. On a small scale right now, but the way that we do it is that we employ people who are otherwise considered unemployable because it doesn't take much to sweep a street or to cut some grass, but at the same time you're giving these people hope that someone does still care about them.
Right. I think people may get caught up in the sensationalism or the surprise of what was known as the Heidelberg Project and not realize what you're talking about, that it's impacting lives and making people realize that they have options. And I get into debates with folks who kind of don't understand the Heidelberg Project and what is that? What is this type of art? Is it really art? And I think it's very interesting and symbolic of how people react to the Heidelberg Project and its location in being in Detroit. So sometimes you can go and see art and it's really pretty and neat and clean and it's in a nice frame with matting, and it's like, oh, I can receive that. But Heidelberg is not anything that can fit in a frame. It is very much 3D living and sometimes misunderstood.
Yes.
And I think it's very symbolic of the people of the city of Detroit and even our story and how we've come full circle. So how is all of this, what do you think the effects of this community art has been on the city of Detroit?
Well, listen, look at the city of Detroit. Historically, we are a city of originators. We're a city of innovators. And so Tyree is just holding true to the history. Now, of course, people didn't understand it, but they didn't understand and appreciate Diego Rivera either. So we began to embrace that part of what we were doing as part of the process. So yeah, when I rolled down my window and turned on Heidelberg Street, I did say, what the hell is all this? and I wasn't so taken by the art, but what the messages behind the art was what just kind of really excited me. Tyree Guyton said that, look, if we pick up these things that have been discarded and thrown away and add color and add shape and give them new life, it's symbolic of giving new life to the community. Now that's profound to me. I thought that was deep. And then to also look at certain elements of the canvas, such as the shoes hanging from the trees, which was a recollection of his grandfather and lynching in the South. And his grandfather said that he could see the soles, and the bottom of our shoes are called soles. So these messages are what's contained within the art that looks unattractive or that may insult some people, but dig deeper. look deeper, and let's disturb the status quo a little bit, and let's wake up the community. And he has done that.
Yeah, speaking of waking up the community, talk about Detroit and how it's changing, and how Heidelberg may or may not be evolving and changing in the new Detroit that
Yeah.
we're starting to see.
Oh, we're evolving and we're changing. We're going to be right there in the mix because, you know, the idea of takeover, or the idea of people coming into the community and pushing other people out. Well, my opinion or our thoughts on that is that if you're doing something, you cannot be pushed out. But you've got to stand up and you've got to do something. And then you also have to become vocal and speak the truth. Now, there's a big look right now at the 50th anniversary of the 67 resurgence is what I like to call it. And what I'm saying is that if we don't look at ways in which we can level the playing field, you better be careful. We might do that again, because there are a lot of people who are looking for outlets, creative outlets. And so we've got to start shining the spotlight on people who are doing it, who are making a difference, and not just shine the spotlight on those who do drop in.
Right, right. So you're the CEO, and Tyree is, I don't know, is he now the artist? So a two-part question. What is Tyree doing now, and what's your vision in this, what I hear, the Heidelberg 3.0?
Yeah, we
the CEO.
skipped 102 and 201. We jumped from 101 to 3.0. First of all, Tyree is being called away all over the country. He's got 4 projects coming up. It's very exciting because what he started in Detroit, Philadelphia is saying, can you bring that concept here now? He's got a show coming up at the Museum of Cleveland, Contemporary Museum of Cleveland, and then a show coming up in Alabama. So it's time for Tyree to now focus more on his career as an artist. And he spent 30 years of his life and gave 30 years of his life to the city of Detroit. And now we think he's deserving of doing some other things. And so he's handed the baton over to a woman.
Yes.
And then I recently recruited 4 more women on the board, and we have a plan. And you have to stay tuned.
That's excellent, and I love it. I'm one of the executive board members of the Michigan Progressive Women's Caucus, so I'm glad to hear not only that you are leading this organization, but you've also hired other women. And when we talk about economic impact, we are also talking about jobs, and
right.
you are hiring. You actually have a staff, so you're employing people, and they're
Yes.
women, and we really love that. Let me ask you this about Tyree, or any artist in particular. Are artists ever appreciated at home?
I don't think that they are, but I'll tell you this. To me, they should be valued like you value doctors or you value attorneys, because a lot of times what artists do is they provide food for the soul, and they can be a medicine man and help us emotionally. And Tyree always says, you know, without art and creativity, the imagination goes dull, and you focus mechanically, and we don't want that. We want the imagination because we're going to continue to innovate and continue inspiring young people to do the same thing.
Yeah. There are many other arts organizations in the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan, and I think to celebrate particularly African American artists, all artists, but African American artists in particular in this case, and artists from the city of Detroit.
Right.
And your journey has not been easy.
No.
And people will often, give up. Most people would have given up. If your buildings catch on fire, you have people talking smack about you. It's like, what is this? This isn't art. This is trash on a house. Get it out of here. And yet you've persevered through 30 years. And you're recognized and honored and respected internationally, but most importantly, even last year, this state recognized the Heidelberg's project value to the arts and cultural landscape of the state of Michigan and giving you your own month in December. So that's pretty huge.
But I have to say that one kind of floored us. I mean, Tyree actually hand was shaking when I shared that news with him, because I think it is hard when you've been giving so much of your time and energy to your city and to get so many knocks like he has. So to get that kind of recognition after 30 years was breathtaking.
And that's why people love the arts. And if you don't, you need to visit. You got to get that incorporated into your life. Thank you so much, Jenenne. That's about all the time we have today. I'd like to once again thank my guest, John Bracey of the Michigan Council of Arts and Cultural Affairs, and my lovely, beautiful, wonderful, intelligent friend, Jenenne Whitfield of the Heidelberg Project, for joining us. And thanks to all of you for watching. If you have an idea for a show or would like to be a guest on the show, please contact my office, and that contact information will appear on the screen. Until next time, be good to yourself and each other. And with that, we're all clear and out of here.